You already know what time it is. Checking out this movie called Trigger Warning. Jessica Alba in it. Let's get it popping. So basically, she plays this lady by the name of Parker. She's in like the CIA or the military or something like that. So anyway, she's taking down these terrorists. Her ally Spider comes through there to help out. This dude with the name Adam is always trying to kill everybody, but Parker's like, yo, calm down. We got to talk to these niggas. The thing was, Adam was trying to have her transferred anyway. So she's talking to Spider. This dude named Jesse calls. He was like her high school sweetheart or something. Anyway, he's calling to tell her that her father Harry died. Apparently he was in some type of cave and the rocks collapsed on him. So we find out Jesse's actually a sheriff in this town. Now the thing is, when Parker gets to the office, Jesse ends up showing her this note, indicating that he thinks it could have been a potential suicide. But Parker don't believe that shit. Jesse ends up driving Parker back home. Now, while this is going down, we find out Jesse's father Ezekiel is some type of senator. Parker's thinking about having Jesse talk to his friends or whatever like that, or friends with Congress and senator or whatever, to try to buy her bar. Because without her dad, she feels like she has no reason to keep it open. The bar was given to her by her dad, but since he's gone, you know what I'm saying? But Jesse's like, nah, I'll give you some time to think about it. Now, the bar is called Maria's. Now, why is that? Well, it's in honor of her mother. Her mother's name was Maria, but she passed away a while ago. So while she's there late night, either sleep or collecting her thoughts, all of a sudden this dude sneaks up in the spot. But it turns out it's some dude named Mikey. He's one of her friends, too. And the reason he's there is because he's supposed to be feeding this, like, pet lizard that's there. Because I guess he's the only one that's been doing it. Crazy thing, you don't even see this lizard till later on, so you're thinking to yourself, is this lizard even here? So they start talking about Harry. And Mikey says he noticed that, Harry was getting old, he was getting a little bit forgetful. And Jesse kind of said that to her earlier, too. But come on, being forgetful is not going to get you to commit suicide. So it turns out Mikey was the one that found him dead. So she goes exploring through the cave with Mikey. So it turns out this cave is very long, it's got multiple different turns in it and whatnot. And Harry was actually spending more time in there because he actually turned it into a legit man cave. Had a TV in there, chairs, all type of shit. Refrigerator, beer. So we get to the spot where the rocks collapsed on them or whatever like that. There were splotches of blood. But then she's seen these marks inside the rocks. I guess you had to be in the military to spot some shit like this, but she thinks this is a clue. So she gets out of the cave and she randomly throws a grenade near some rocks or whatever like that to see it explode. She picks up the rock and it leaves the same splashes in it. So indicating she thinks somebody sabotaged the cave. She doesn't think he committed suicide. She thinks somebody killed him. She ends up going to the other bar that Mo runs. Her and Mikey end up going there. And then walks this douchebag by the name of Elvis. Elvis is drunk. He's talking crazy to Parker and whatnot. He's talking about, yeah, you should have had some kids with my brother. Turns out Elvis's brother is actually Jesse. So they're both brothers and their father's Ezekiel, who's the senator of the whole town. So as she's leaving the bar with Mikey or whatever like that, she looks at this one car or whatever like that. Now, it's stolen or whatever, but that's not the point. The thing was, this stolen car had a machine gun in the back of that bitch. So she's thinking to herself, what person or what type of people riding around a stolen car got military weapons? So Parker gets Mikey to follow these guys into this hardware store. She ends up whipping all their ass and giving them the business. Then she sees one of the dudes with this watch on. Apparently this watch was stolen. She returns the watch to this dude by the name of Frank. Frank was actually her father Harry's best friend. After she gives Harry the watch, she goes back over to Mikey's house. He gets reacquainted with his mom. Now they all think Elvis is a douchebag, but there's more to it than that. She has her suspicions about Elvis, but she ain't got no proof. So then she goes back to Maria's contemplating. All of a sudden she hears explosions. And she sees Elvis and her boys playing around with weapons using it as target practice. But here's the thing. Elvis is shooting at targets with a fucking rocket launcher. So you think to yourself, how the hell is Elvis getting his hands on all these military weapons? So if you didn't pick up on this, the people that she was following, the one that had the machine gun in the car, that machine gun was sold to them by Elvis. So Parker ends up calling up Spider, right? And she tries to get camera footage for anything that was happening around in the area. She ends up finding out the cameras inside of her bar were fake, but the cameras on the outside are real. And he sees certain footage on there where Elvis and his boys were chilling around the Maria bar. Now, why would they be on her property like that? So later on, she sneaks over to the Swan property, because Jesse, Elvis, and Ezekiel last names are Swan. And she sees a bunch of people testing out guns. And Elvis ends up talking to this dude by the name of Ghost, because apparently he's been avoiding the government and the CIA for years. And Ghost is basically trying to buy 5 RPGs from him. He's going to give him $500,000 for the shit. I guess they're going to have it sorted out within a couple of days. And now you're thinking to yourself, how did Elvis meet up with this character by the name of Ghost? Well, it turns out Elvis has been going to the dark web and been selling weapons on the internet for a couple of years. That's where he ended up bumping into Ghost. But the question is, how's he getting access to these weapons? Well, it turns out his father-in-law, Ezekiel, was sponsoring all this shit. So there you go. Later on, Parker ends up meeting Jesse at this little cafe. And then Ezekiel pops up. And it seems like Jesse doesn't really get along with his father Ezekiel like that. It's like he just deals with him because he's a senator. But at the same time, he also helped him get his job at being the sheriff. But now Parker suspects more that Elvis has something to do with her father's death. Parker, Ezekiel, and Jesse end up going back to his house. And he's talking to her about not being racist and running a campaign, but he doesn't understand what Latinx is about. So right off the back, he lets you know he's a real smug individual. While they're talking, she gets a text on her phone saying that Elvis is at the mine. We're like, what? So she makes up some excuse and says she gotta leave as a work emergency. So who was the one that texted her? I'm assuming it was either Spider or Mikey. But Spider hasn't gotten nowhere near there yet. He's like doing his own thing. So she ends up going into the mine or whatever like that, and she sees Elvis and the boys just sitting around chilling and whatnot. So we're like, what are they doing here? Now she's thinking to herself, Elvis definitely killed her father, so she starts whipping up on him. One of the boys starts attacking her all throughout the bar, and then the dude starts lighting the bar on fire. In the struggle of chasing Parker up the stairs, he ends up falling through the stairs and ends up getting burnt up. Done deal, daddy shit. Parker ends up escaping out the bar. Meanwhile, Elvis is trying to get away in his car, but he can't go nowhere. It turns out Parker had already stabbed a hole in the tire before she even came in the cave. As Parker is beating up Elvis, all of a sudden Jesse pops out of nowhere. It's like, hey, that's enough. But how did Jesse know she would just go back to the house? So Jesse had her locked up in a jail cell. She started putting pieces of the puzzle together. Well, as it turns out, the whole Swan family's at the prison right now. Elvis had a lot of weapons that he was stashing in the cave. Ezekiel was a part of the whole thing because the money that Elvis was bringing was sponsoring his campaign. Now the thing is, Jesse didn't want to be a part of it because Elvis was bringing in outsiders that would draw too much attention to what they were trying to accomplish. And supposedly he still has love for Parker. Well, apparently Parker figured out a lot more about this because of what she saw in the camera footage. Now she's chained up to the door, Elvis is whipping on her. But as they're contemplating all this stuff going down, they didn't see the hairpin she pulled out the back of her head. So while she's acting like she's still handcuffed, she starts talking to them about camera footage, because they were basically threatening to kill her. The thing is, the Swan family didn't know the outside cameras were legit. So basically, they get them to call Spidey to tell them information. But when they make the call, she's basically telling them she's getting tortured, breaks out the handcuffs, and starts fighting back. Obviously giving Spidey the heads up. Now while she's fighting off Ezekiel and Elvis, Jesse had a chance to shoot her in the back, but he chose not to. She just beat him up a little bit and put Elvis and Jesse inside the cage. Now she's dragging out Ezekiel trying to get information. Another cop comes up out of nowhere. Ezekiel escapes. She ends up getting in the car and dipping out. Now while she's escaping, apparently she lost too much blood, so she ends up falling asleep at the wheel and crashes. Next day, Elvis and his boys are looking for Parker. They go to Mikey's house threatening him and his mom and all that. They search downstairs, but they ain't find nothing. They end up taking some of his weed and dipping off. The thing is, we find out there's another part to his basement, but it's behind the laundry machine. Behind there's a door, some steps or whatever like that, and we see Parker laid out on the bed, getting treatment and all that. Random note, when the fire occurred at the bar, we seen a lizard running around, so we was like, oh snap, there is a lizard right here. Mikey was telling the truth, but anyway. So while she's been healing up for like a couple of days, Mikey didn't care about that little bit of weed, because if you look in the other distance, he's got like a whole grow house and dispensary and everything like that, all fixed up, ready to go. I'm like, wow. So at this point, Parker's feeling well enough to get some shit popping. But she needs some guns. So Mikey's mom is like, I ain't got no guns, but I know somebody get them. We gotta go to Mo. Mo was the guy that ran the other bar where the first time you see Elvis at. But in his basement, he got all the guns. Gonzo guns and all that. And then later on, she goes to Frank and gets some more weapons. You know what I'm saying? Grenades, got the machete, got it popping. So now she's strapped up, ready to get it. At this next scene, we see Ghost getting impatient because apparently he ain't get his guns in time. And then he's smacking around Ezekiel like, yeah, you're going to get your money. Don't worry about it. You're going to get all your guns. I could throw in some extra ones too. So at this point, you're thinking to yourself, where is Jesse and Elvis at? Turns out they back at the cave and Ghost had met him there. Now, Ghost is pissed off because one of his cargo trucks got blown up. Now, how did that happen? Well, as Parker's going back to the cave, it's surrounded by Elvis's and Ghost's goons. All of a sudden, Spidey finally pops up, but he's over there asking them about Parker. And then they say he's inside. And as we know, Parker's a she, so clearly they fucked up. He peeps the scene, he's trying to dip out or whatever like that. They're not trying to let her leave, he's trying to fight them off, and all of a sudden you see Parker shooting at niggas, and she ends up shooting one of the cargo trucks with a fucking rocket launcher, so there you go. Because somebody came from behind to try to attack Parker or whatever like that, it gave a distraction for Spidey to get kidnapped. And that's why Ghost is pissed off at Elvis, along with the fact that they ain't got their guns yet. So Ghost, Elvis, Jesse, and the boys start going around to figure out some stuff. One of the goons is watching the weapons that's in the cave. Parker takes that one dude out, and then she ends up getting a rocket launcher. Thinking to herself, she's gonna blow all this shit up. Now she's going through the caves because she knows these caves very well. She ends up finding Spidey, saves his ass. They go back to the room with the weapons, but there's a couple of dudes in there. They gotta fight them niggas off. Then she rocket launches the whole room. Everything's blown up. After that, she gets back up, but she can't find Spidey. Ghost comes out of nowhere for the fight, but she ends up getting them done deal did his shit quickly with the machete. So Ghost is supposed to be some type of badass that escaped the government for years, going through the dark web, all this type of stuff. Got a crew with his goons, torturing Ezekiel and all this other stuff. You think he's pretty badass, right? So him going out to Parker like this was very anticlimactic, but clearly he's not the main villain, right? My bad, I missed the part. She went to the Swan's residence and done deal niggas, and then she met up with Ezekiel. She done deal Ezekiel, but not before getting some information out of him. So before she got to the cave, she was with Mikey, and then she gave us this information. Turns out when Elvis was using the cave to hide weapons, Harry noticed it and spotted it. Harry ended up fighting with Elvis, and while that was going on, Jesse ended up shooting him in the back. So I guess Jesse was going through PSD. He didn't want to shoot Parker in the back when he was in the jail cell, you know what I'm saying, go through that shit twice. So apparently as Harry was dying, he had pulled out a grenade and tossed it upwards or whatever like that. And that was where the explosion came from when the rocks fall, and that's how Parker noticed the little fractions of stuff on the rocks or whatever. So anyway, back to current events. Ghost got done deal dead as shit. And as Parker is still looking for Spidey, then all of a sudden Elvis comes out of nowhere. Now the one-on-one confrontation between her and Elvis. The back and forth whiffling, but once again, she gets the machete back, and then she done deals Elvis. He dead as shit. Now this is going down. All of a sudden, Mikey, his mom, and Mo are all in the tunnel now. She told Mikey to sit back, but bottom line is he couldn't just do nothing. He goes in the tunnel with him. And thankfully they did, because they finally ended up finding Spidey, who was collapsed under some freaking rocks, but he was still alive. His leg was messed up, so Mikey's mom was going to stay with him. And they basically go through other parts of the tunnel to find Jesse. We found out this one part of the tunnel led to a military depot base. I was like, what? Maybe that was the way the Swans were getting in? But then again, they couldn't have known that because Elvis was going in through the front part, getting caught on cameras and shit. They didn't know about the cameras, but still. Jesse's hiding back and forth through these crates. So she doesn't think there's any way to sneak past these guards at this point, so she gets an idea. She tells Mikey and Mo to go back to his mom so that they don't get caught, because they're not military. Now her arm is bleeding, but she goes over to the soldiers like, oh my god, pretending her arm is so fucked up, right? She ends up falling over towards near some crates and telling the officer to go get help, whatever like that. Meanwhile, while he's doing that, she starts searching for Jesse. She ends up finding them, they end up slugging it out, but they don't want to hurt each other. But Jesse doesn't want to hurt Parker. Jesse ends up pulling out a freaking grenade. Then he gives a speech about how he didn't want this life, he was stuck in it because of his family. She tries to calm him down, she puts down her knife and she tries to get him to put the pin back in the grenade. And she's holding his hand, right? But then the thing is, he ends up pushing her away, drops the grenade, and blows himself up. I was like, damn. Yeah, I get it, Jesse, you wouldn't want to be a part of it, but bottom line is, you're still a part of it. Yeah, she still knew he cared at one point because halfway through the movie, he ended up giving her the business when he was back at his house. But that was right before she checked with Spidey with the CTE footage. So afterwards, the Swans are done and no more. Who's going to go for a re-election for senator? Who knows? Next thing we know, the town is helping rebuild their bar or whatever like that. Mikey's actually going to take over the bar. He's going to work on that. And then Spidey and Parker are just going to go out and do their own thing. And that's pretty much what it is. The joint was lit. I ain't even going to front. Trigger warning on Netflix. Check it out.